Marshall Ferguson here from the CFL on TSN, coming to you from the beautiful fall colors, which can only mean one thing. It's probably the end of the riding season for you wherever you are. This year was my first year riding, and being a Canadian motorcycle rider is an incredible experience because the community is unbelievable. But my experience in my first full year of riding was enriched 1,000-fold by my relationship with Honda Canada. For those of you that don't follow me on social media, I might have got my face run through by a deer.
Oh my God!
Down around Turkey Point, Long Point in Ontario, was riding along on my own CBR 300 that I got this year as a starter bike, and all of a sudden, gone.
Oh my God!
Well, the good people at Honda hooked me up for essentially the remainder of the summer, gave me a tremendous opportunity to get to know all sorts of different types of bikes, and so here I am to review a couple of them for you. Now, I will say, if you're looking for a super spec heavy, you're really into the details, the finer things, the mechanics, I'm not really that guy for you. I gotta be honest. It's my first year, I've gotten up to speed, I call the Canadian Superbike Championship. I love being around the bikes, I love learning, but this is really more so about feel and what Honda gave me to try and understand throughout the year. Now, my journey began because back at, I would say, the spring of 2023, I got a call from Cam McFadden, who's the producer of the Bridgestone Canadian Superbike Championship, and he said, would you be interested in calling our races? Well, I've never done anything like that before, but I love the challenge of trying new and different things, and so I told him, why not? Let's give it a shot. Went in completely blind. I remember my very first day, I was driving into Shannonville Motorsport Park, and I was holding my phone in front of me saying, GP Bikes Pro Superbike Feature Club. What the hell does that mean? What is the GP Bikes Pro? Well, needless to say, it's been a lot of learning over the last couple of years, but I went to Daytona for the very first time for the Daytona 200 and Bike Week this past spring. And Ross Milson, the owner of the Bridgestone Canadian Superbike Championship, kind of came up to me and said, hey, the only way I can get you out on the track to try and understand it is if I get you actually up onto two wheels, just like that guy. And so you end up basically having me going, I don't know, how would I do that? And he said, well, it would be a two-up ride around Daytona. So I went into it blind, I said yes, and by the time that I was done bouncing and bobbling my head all the way around the banking at Daytona, I hopped off the bike and I went, yeah, well, that's the end of that, I'm getting a bike. So I ended up getting into motorcycling by doing that, and then of course, had the deer incident and got this lineup. So let's talk about some of the bikes. The very first one that I had was the Honda SEL 500. It was so much fun to hop onto because it was different than anything I had ever thought I would ride, really, because I feel like I'm more adventure sport bike. That was kind of my hypothesis of going into riding. Well, the SEL 500 obviously is very different than that, both the styling and the feel. It has the same engine as the CBR 500, so I kind of learned it as an opportunity to get up to speed from my CBR 300 that I own into being able to own something that's a little bit more powerful and see how it felt. It was immediately accommodating. It was your classic Honda. It was hop onto it, have some fun. And the thing that I loved the most about it was the acceleration, I would say, from about gears 2 to 4 with that 471 parallel twin CC engine. The back end just felt like it would sink if you would actually grab for any throttle whatsoever. The torque and the amount of fun I had on that thing over the 2 weeks that I had it was incredible. I took it up to Tobermory and I ended up doing essentially a long road trip, weaving my way along kind of the Georgian Bay side, making my way back down the Bruce Peninsula. That bike just screams, get on it and go and have fun and enjoy yourself. Now, obviously the styling of it, not having a windscreen up front, a couple of times I got on the 401, was doing a couple of work trips, took it down to a Tim Hortons field in Hamilton for a CFL game that I was working, and you get beat up pretty good when you don't have any wind protection. Anybody who rides knows that. But it was still just one of those bikes that every single day that I woke up and I had it in the garage, I looked at it and I just started thinking, where can I take this? How much fun can I have with this? So it was a wonderful way to get kind of ingratiated into something different that I had never experienced before. That led me into, a jump from my CBR 300 into the 500, all the way up into what I would essentially look at as being the monster. It is the biggest, of course, of the Honda lineup. It is the Honda Africa Twin Adventure Sport ESDCT, 1100cc, 600 pounds of motorcycle, and something that I'd always heard of. You'd always heard the lore of the adventure sport bike and Africa Twin and the culture around all of these things. You see the videos that Honda puts out, Honda Canada, and they're always, riding through these crazy adventurous areas. I wasn't prepared for that. I wasn't going to be someone who was going to take it off-road and trail riding and all these things. But I just wanted to try and see what a bike that's that large, that powerful, would feel like. And I'm not gonna lie, it was intimidating. It was very intimidating at the start. But I found as time went on and I got a chance to ride the bike more and more, that I really grew into it and got an opportunity to experience and start to actually enjoy some of the exploits of what it had. Now, the bragging note, I guess you want to say, the update from year to year for the Africa Twin based on some of the information that I've read, is that it's a little bit torquier in the lower ranges, which means you get a little bit more fun. You don't have to necessarily crank it up, you know, 100, 120, 130 in order to feel any of the real torque and the power of that 1100cc engine. But for me, I just started thinking as soon as I kind of booked getting that adventure sport, the Africa Twin, where can I take this? What's my favorite place on the planet that has incredible roads and twisties and all the rest? And for me, that's Vermont. That's always been Vermont. That'll probably always be Vermont. And so I ended up taking it down there and doing about 4,000 kilometers in about 5 days. It was from Wednesday through Sunday. I just didn't stop riding, and it was comfortable. I went all sorts of places. You turn down a dirt road, you don't get scared by it. It's versatile. And then certainly, I mean, I took it all the way up to Lombardy Raceway to call an FIM Mini GP Canada Series race. And you go from Smiths Falls all the way down to Lake Placid in one run. And then the next day from Lake Placid up to Burlington, Vermont, and then into Vermont. And then I did the Lincoln Gap and the Brandon Gap. And I mean, if it was a mountain in Vermont, I'm pretty sure I covered it, whether it was Green Mountain National Forest, White Mountain National Forest. And that thing never quit. The craziest thing for me about the Africa Twin was actually the fuel economy, because I expected an engine to be that powerful would just absolutely destroy a tank of gas. And yes, it does have a larger tank than a lot of the other Honda bikes, but it really holds its own in terms of fuel economy, which really, really surprised me. A lot of people, anywhere that I went, absolutely fell in love with the Africa Twin Adventure Sport EST CT, because you know, it's got those gold forks and the gold rims, all these things that a lot of people are just kind of drawn to. I couldn't stop for gas without having someone walk up to me and say, oh man, I used to have one of these. It was the absolute best experience. I felt like I could take it anywhere. You know, how long have you had it? It's about, I don't know, 4 days, 5 days. And I basically explained to them my relationship with Honda Canada and the fact that I wanted to be able to hop onto something different and unique. And they said, you will never forget your first time riding one of these bikes. And I completely agree with them. Now, the interesting part of the Adventure Sport ESD CT, the Africa Twin, was that I ended up getting the one that obviously had the dual clutch transmission. And that is, you know, you can flip the gears, you know, with your fingers. It can go into fully automatic mode, it can semi-automatic, whatever you want. And when I was flipping with my fingers at the time, the first half hour to hour that I had it, as somebody who rides a sport bike, CBR 300 down low, loves shifting and hitting the clutch and all the rest, I really didn't like it. I was really turned off by it. And I talked to some people about it and they said, well, the DCT stuff is likely the future. We're seeing that showing up in a lot of different ways in different bikes and different manufacturers, but it is the future. It's likely to be something that people enjoy more and more, and that gets people into riding motorcycles at a base level where they don't necessarily have to be perfect at feathering the clutch or being able to shift and all the rest, or having to worry about stalling out. So when I was on it, I didn't love it. Then I got into the mountains. And when I got into the mountains, it gave me, I would say, this peace of mind that I could do what I normally do by shifting. I can still enjoy it. It's a different experience. It's a unique experience, but it's not riding motorcycles gone light. So once I got over that mental hurdle, it was interesting because I actually took this bad boy that I'll get to in just a minute into the mountains in Vermont in the same place. And when I took it into the mountains, I was riding the same roads, 100 north, Route 100 north in Vermont, from Wilmington, Vermont, all the way up towards Stowe. And I started to wonder as I was riding, do I miss the DCT? Would I actually prefer to have it in this moment? And it's still not something that I don't have a concrete answer on, but I do know that the thought went through my head, you know, as the left hand's getting a little bit worn out and I'm doing hundreds and hundreds of kilometers in single rides. And so I do think it serves a purpose, and certainly on a bike as big as the Africa Twin, I do think it really does serve something for a certain audience that would be into that and not necessarily turned off by it. But it was an interesting experience, again, as my first time ever having something like that. Now, the next bike that I had went back into the sport bikes. It was the Honda CBR 500R. And the funniest thing about going from an Africa Twin onto a CBR sport bike was I always knew that my CBR 300 was a little bit lower. Didn't understand just how low until I'd been sitting straight up, as you can see from this Honda Transo. I mean, you're in the saddle, it's sunk down a little bit, and when I got onto that CBR 500, I put myself down onto it and I went, really? this is the norm. This is what I got into riding with. This is what everybody at the track rides in the Bridgestone Canadian Superbike Championship. And again, within half an hour, it was fun and so mobile. It's such a low center of gravity, tremendous. I mean, there's not really much that I can say about it that hasn't been said. I think a lot of people understand the sport bike category, what it's all about in terms of feeling nimble and being able to go through the gears quickly and all the rest. I really, really did enjoy it, not gonna lie. I mean, if I was to buy another sport bike, it'd likely be the 500, maybe potentially the Honda CBR 650 with the E-clutch. Again, talking about DCT stuff. I was supposed to get the 650, but Motorcycle Experience ended up snagging it from me on the press sleeve.
Damn you, damn big fat Dave Hatch and Motorcycle Experience. How dare you take a bike that's not actually mine.
My favorite thing about the Honda CBR 500R that I had was how quickly it felt like home. Again, to be able to hop onto that bike and immediately just understand the weight and the gearing and the turning and the shifting. I mean, it was so easy and so seamless. And my 4-year-old son, Noah, his favorite part about it, he saw the graphics on the front and he said, yeah, I'm gonna call this Bolt, because it's quick as all hell, it's a ton of fun, and the front looks like lightning bolts as well. I love that Honda tries to make their 500s in the sport bike category look and feel a little bit like a Fireblade, right? And the funny thing about this too, is somebody who rides a CBR 300 as my own bike originally, is that if you are not someone who knows a lot about bikes, you can see a CBR 300 or a 500 and think that it's the cream of the crop, the biggest beast. The number of people that I had come up in a couple of weeks that I had that CBR 500 and say to me, oh man, unbelievable, this must have cost you a fortune. I'm like, it's actually super affordable, right in around, I think, $9,000 it is in the Canadian market to be able to get one of those. So that was an awesome experience. And then I ended up hopping onto the XL 750 Transalp that you see right in front of you right now. Man, where do I begin with this thing? The Africa Twin, as somebody who started on a 300, absolutely terrifying. The power, the weight. This 750, this is the bike for me. And I am somebody who loves sport bikes, as I say, covers sport bikes. I watch MotoGP and World Superbike and British Superbike, but I knew I would love adventure biking. I don't think the Africa Twin is for somebody like me necessarily, the entry level, unless you're doing those real super long rides, you're going into crazy off-road terrain. This bike gets everything done that I feel like the Africa Twin could do for me, but it was so much more of a homecoming kind of feel. The way that this sinks down almost felt like the SEL 500 in terms of the suspension and the give and all the rest. The ability to be multiple, to have the cargo boxes on here, which I don't have on right now, but you get the top box, you get the two sides, to be able to take anything and everything that you need with you. I took it back to Vermont. I went for another 3-day ride. I decided that I was going to go and put in, my camping gear, my clothing, anything else that I needed in the top box. And it wasn't even bad in the wind, because the wind protection on this thing is so good that you end up just slicing through it and not getting blown around like a sail, as you do with a lot of other bikes when you end up, I think, having those cargo boxes on from the people that I've spoken to that are really into the adventure sport category. So I love it. I love the fact that, as I say, you can get from A to B. You can even ride it in the city. I ended up riding the Africa Twin into Montreal, downtown Montreal, to go cover a CFL game when I was coming north from Vermont. Not the most fun I've ever had in doing something like that, but to me, what really sets this apart is that in the SEL 500 and the CBR 500 that I had, you had that 471cc liquid-cooled parallel twin engine. And I asked a couple of people, I'm like, why do I enjoy this engine so much more than any of the other bikes that I've had from Honda so far this year? And they said it just sings. They said that 4-stroke engine being up around 750cc, like it is gonna reward you. And you get all the bells and whistles on this bike in terms of your gravel mode, your rain mode, your sport mode, your standard. You can set it to whatever you want in terms of a user-created one, but you don't necessarily have to go down into the lower categories to have it, and it's still a super reasonable price point, as you would expect with a Honda. So if I were to pick one for my entire season of riding, this is it. This bike, I've actually said to people, if and when I get into actually purchasing an adventure sport bike, which, I should probably replace the CBR 300 before I do that, this is going to be it. The Translope 750, it's the right weight, it's got the right flexibility, it's got versatility, it's got great top speed, it's got an incredible ability to get up through the gears yet still feel comfortable when you're riding in situations where you got to feather the clutch and be around in town or whatever it might be. Come up emergency braking, stop sign, red light, whatever it is. It's got it all for me. So it was an amazing experience, and I'm super thankful to get exposed to all of these different bikes, to be able to see what they're about and then break them down as best as I possibly can for you out there. I hope everyone had a safe and healthy and enjoyable riding season. We're looking forward to being back on the track with the Bridgestone Canadian Superbike Championship, of course, coming up next year. The schedule should be coming out very soon. Looking forward to going to a couple of different tracks that maybe we haven't been to in the past, which will be a lot of fun to see riders get up to speed in real time in front of us. But yeah, we got the Bridgestone Canadian Superbike Championship podcast going. We'll be talking that throughout the winter, of course, and looking forward to going to a couple of bike shows as well. So we'll be able to maybe give you a couple of more shouts and maybe look at a couple more Hondas as well here on the YouTube or on the podcast as well. So I want to give a special shout out before I go to everybody at Honda. Thank you so much. I mean, the people that work at Honda HQ, from their social team getting in connection with me to Cassidy Lukes being able to kind of organize all my crazy requests, including, hey, can I just have the bike for 1 week? I have a game I want to take this bike to. He was extremely understanding. So thank you to Cassidy and everything that he does for Honda and hooking us up and being able to massage and maneuver around everyone's needs. But what a tremendous year, my first year of riding, and really looking forward to year number 2 coming up very soon. Look forward to all of these cars stopping going by too. 4 wheels! Ah!